Let's get right into it. Number 10. Why do we need sleep? You spend about a third of your life unconscious and vulnerable. Every animal with a brain sleeps, even fruit flies. Yet after centuries of research, we still don't have a definitive answer for why. Dozens of theories exist. Sleep clears toxins from your brain. Sleep consolidates memories. Sleep restores energy. None of these fully explain why evolution made us spend 8 hours every night completely defenseless. Sleep deprivation will kill you faster than starvation. Rats kept awake die within 2 to 3 weeks. Humans with a rare genetic disease called fatal familial insomnia literally cannot sleep, and they die within months. Whatever sleep does, it's not optional. Your body will force you into micro-sleeps if you try to skip it. You could be standing up, having a conversation, and your brain will just shut down for a few seconds without asking permission. The best guess right now is that sleep does multiple essential things at once, which is basically researchers admitting they know it matters without understanding exactly how. Number 9, how does a bicycle stay upright? You learned to ride a bike as a kid. Millions of people ride them every day. Engineers have been building them for over 200 years, and the physics still isn't settled. For decades, two main theories dominated: the gyroscopic effect from spinning wheels and something called caster effect, where the front wheel trails behind the steering axis. Both forces exist. Then in 2011, engineers built a bicycle specifically designed to cancel out both effects. The wheels spun opposite directions to eliminate gyroscopic forces. The front wheel was positioned to eliminate caster effect. According to existing theories, this bike should have been impossible to balance. It stayed upright anyway. The researchers published their findings, basically admitting they'd proven the old explanations wrong without discovering what. The real explanation is, something about the geometry and motion of bicycles creates stability that we can describe mathematically, but don't fundamentally understand. You know how to ride a bike, but physics can't fully explain what you're doing. Number 8, why is ice slippery? You've known ice is slippery since you were old enough to walk on a frozen puddle. Researchers have been arguing about why for over 150 years, and they still can't agree. The most popular theory for decades was pressure melting. Your weight pressing down on ice lowers its melting point, creating a thin layer of water you slide on. Sounds reasonable? The math doesn't work. The pressure from a person's foot isn't anywhere close to enough to melt ice at typical winter temperatures. Another theory says friction creates heat, which melts the surface. Ice is slippery even when you first touch it, before any friction has occurred. The current leading theory involves something called a quasi-liquid layer. The surface molecules of ice are less organized than the molecules beneath, creating something that's not quite solid and not quite liquid. Different research teams using different methods get different results about how thick this layer is and how it behaves. Ice is one of the most common substances on Earth. We built entire sports around its slipperiness. Figure skating, hockey, curling, bobsled. All of them depend on a physical property we can't fully account for. Number 7. How do cats purr? You've heard a cat purr, that distinctive rumbling vibration between 25 and 50 hertz. Veterinarians and biologists have studied cats for centuries. The exact mechanism remains unconfirmed. The main theory is that cats use their larynx and diaphragm muscles to rapidly dilate and constrict their glottis, creating those vibrations as air passes through. This has never been definitively proven. What makes it stranger is that cats purr both while breathing in and breathing out, creating a continuous sound. Most vocal sounds animals make only happen on the exhale. Cats are doing something different. Then there's the mystery of purpose. Most people assume purring means they're happy. Cats also purr when they're injured, stressed, or dying. Some researchers think purring might actually be a healing mechanism. The vibration frequency falls in a range that promotes bone density and tissue repair. Cats might literally be purring themselves back to health. A cat could be sitting in your lap right now, and we can't tell you exactly how or why it's making that sound. Number 6. Why do we yawn? You just thought about yawning, and now you might be fighting the urge to yawn. Why does that happen? Why do we yawn at all? The honest answer is nobody's certain. The old explanation was that yawning brings more oxygen to your brain when you're tired. Studies found that breathing pure oxygen doesn't reduce yawning, and yawning doesn't actually change blood oxygen levels. Another theory is brain cooling. Your brain works best at a specific temperature, and yawning might be thermal regulation. There's some evidence for this. People yawn more in moderately warm environments. Pressing something cool against your forehead reduces yawning. This doesn't explain everything. Fetuses yawn in the womb where temperature regulation isn't an issue. Then there's contagious yawning. Why does seeing someone yawn make you want to yawn? Reading about yawning makes you want to yawn, even thinking about it. Some researchers think it's related to empathy, because people with higher empathy scores are more susceptible. Autistic individuals also yawn contagiously, despite some theories suggesting they wouldn't. You do it multiple times every day. You've done it your whole life. We have no definitive explanation. Number 5, what causes déjà vu? You walk into a room and suddenly you're certain you've been here before, in exactly this situation. The feeling is so strong it's almost unsettling. About 60 to 70% of people experience déjà vu, and the underlying mechanism is still debated. One theory involves a timing glitch in your brain's memory systems. Your brain has different pathways for experiencing the present moment and for retrieving memories. Normally these work in sequence. Experience, then storage, then retrieval. Sometimes they might fire simultaneously, making a new experience feel like a memory being retrieved. You're experiencing the present while your brain incorrectly tags it as the past. Another theory suggests déjà vu happens when your brain recognizes a familiar pattern in a new environment. Maybe this room has the same spatial layout as your childhood classroom. Your brain notices the pattern subconsciously before your conscious mind catches up, creating that eerie sense of recognition. None of these theories are proven. We can't reliably trigger déjà vu in a lab to study it. We can't identify which brain regions are responsible. Some epilepsy patients experience intense déjà vu right before seizures, which suggests specific brain activity is involved. What exactly remains unclear. Number 4, how do birds know where to migrate? Every year, billions of birds fly, thousands of miles between breeding and feeding grounds. Arctic terns fly from pole to pole. Bar-tailed godwits fly non-stop from Alaska to New Zealand. These birds don't have GPS. They've never made the trip before. Many of them travel alone, not following experienced adults. Researchers have identified some navigation methods, but combining them into a complete explanation hasn't worked. Birds can sense Earth's magnetic field through something called magnetoreception. They have specialized proteins in their eyes that might let them literally see magnetic field lines. The exact biology isn't understood. Birds also use the position of the sun and stars. They have some kind of internal map that integrates multiple sources of information. Young birds appear to have an inherited sense of which direction to fly and for how long. The real puzzle is this. Transplanted birds can navigate back home from places they have never been, even when their familiar sun and star patterns are different. Some birds can navigate on cloudy nights without stars. The magnetic field theory should produce errors near the poles where field lines converge. Birds seem to be doing something we haven't identified yet. Number 3, why does music give us chills? You're listening to your favorite song and suddenly you feel a shiver down your spine. Your hair stands up. You get goosebumps. About 2/3 of people experience these musical chills. Researchers call it frisson. Musical chills are associated with dopamine release in the brain's reward system, the same system that responds to food and other pleasures. Music isn't necessary for survival, like food is. There's no obvious evolutionary reason for your brain to reward you for hearing certain sound patterns. Some researchers think it's a byproduct. Music happens to stimulate pathways that evolved for more practical purposes. The anticipation and fulfillment of musical expectations might hijack the same neural circuits that helped our ancestors predict important events. Why do specific musical moments trigger chills? Studies found certain features are more likely to cause them. Unexpected harmonies, a new instrument entering, a singer reaching for a high note, volume swells after quiet passages. Your brain seems to respond to violations of expectation that resolve pleasantly. Different people get chills from different songs. The same person might get chills from a song one day and not the next. Whatever's happening involves memory, expectation, emotion, and physical response in ways we can't disentangle. Number 2, how do anesthetics actually work? Modern surgery depends entirely on anesthetics. Every day, millions of people go, completely unconscious, have their bodies cut open, and wake up with no memory of it. Doctors have been using anesthetics since 1846. The precise mechanism is still incomplete. The general process is known. Anesthetics interact with proteins in your neurons, particularly something called GABA receptors, that inhibit brain activity. The step between those molecular interactions and unconsciousness is basically a black box. We can describe what goes in and what comes out, not what happens in between. Different anesthetic drugs have different molecular structures. Some are gases, some are injected. They somehow all produce the same result, loss of consciousness, through different pathways. The uncomfortable part is this. We don't even have a complete scientific definition of consciousness to measure against. We know anesthetics turn it off. We don't know what it is at a fundamental level. About 1 in 19,000 patients experiences anesthesia awareness, being conscious during surgery but unable to move or communicate. We can't always predict who this will happen to or why. You trust anesthesia with your life every time you have surgery. The doctors administering it are essentially using tools that aren't fully understood. Number 1, why are there left-handed people? About 10% of humans are left-handed. This percentage has stayed roughly constant across all recorded history and all cultures. No one knows why left-handed people exist or why it's specifically 10%. Evolution should have eliminated left-handedness if it were disadvantageous or made everyone left-handed if it were advantageous. Instead, we have this persistent minority. The leading theories involve brain lateralization. In most people, the left hemisphere controls language and fine motor skills and the right hand. In some left-handers, this is reversed or mixed. Brain scans show plenty of left-handers with typical left brain language dominance. The relationship isn't simple. Genetics plays a role, but it's not straightforward inheritance. 2 left-handed parents usually have right-handed children. Identical twins with identical genes often have different hand preferences. Something beyond genetics is involved. Some researchers think it might be determined by position in the womb and which ear faces outward to hear the mother's voice. Others point to hormone levels during fetal development. What's strange is that population-wide handedness exists at all. Most animals don't have it. Individual animals might prefer one paw, but across a species it's usually 50-50. Humans specifically evolved to have a population-wide hand preference with a consistent minority going the other way. This appears unique to us, something about human evolution selected for handedness and specifically for roughly 90% right-handed and 10% left-handed. What that something was remains an open question. That's all for today. If you learned something new about the limits of human knowledge, subscribe to see more videos like this.